Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the North Sydney Local Planning Panel. We are gathered here this afternoon to consider and determine 3 development applications, and the agenda and papers have been on the Council's website for the last week. And we do have people who have registered to speak. So for the first item, I've got Myron Hartley-Hull. Are you online? Yes, I can see you. Thank you, Myron. And we've got Brett Brown from Ingham Planning also for the applicant on item 1. Is that correct? Great. Okay, and I'll just go through it. For item 2, we have no persons registered to speak. And for item 3, we have John Altram. Are you there?
Not yet.
No, not yet. Okay. Catherine Burdett. Not as yet. And Joe Wang.
Yes, no, Joe.
Right. Okay, then. They'll no doubt come online later. Just to briefly introduce ourselves, I'm Jan Morell and I chair the plant panel, and I've been a planner for some 35 years plus. My last full-time role was a commissioner with the Land and Environment Court for 14 years. And since retirement, I have just been a member or chair of independent planning panels. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brendan Randalls. I'm an architect and urban designer. And apart from private practice, I am on a number of design review panels and planning panels throughout New South Wales.
Lindsay.
Oh, good afternoon, Lindsay Day. I'm a geographer and a town planner. I have my own private consulting practice, which is a mix of local councils, private clients, and I'm on this and 3 other panels. I'm also Council's alternative representative on the Sydney North Planning Panel. I'm a member of the Planning Institute and I've got degrees in geography and town and country planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm also a town planner with over 40 years experience, both in local government and private practice. I'm former director of planning at Waverley Council, and more recently, I sit on a number of council's local planning panels.
And I'd just like everybody to indicate if they have a conflict of interest. I don't have any conflicts.
No conflict.
No conflicts.
No conflicts.
Great, thank you very much. So the procedure for this afternoon is we generally hear from submitters and objectors to any of the matters on the agenda. And if people could try and limit their address to the panel by some 5 minutes or thereabouts, that would be appreciated. And then we hear from the applicants' representatives, and I'll put everybody on notice in this regard. I'd like the applicants' representatives to respond to issues that may have been raised by any submitters, objectors, prior to them addressing the panel as well. So this afternoon, as I said, we only have 3 matters, and the first one is 5 Rodborough Avenue, Crow's Nest. And this is a modification application to an already approved development application. And it's for an additional unit, associated landscaping and other various components to comply with the requirements for parking for the additional unit that's proposed. I would like to ask Myron Hartley-Hull, if you'd like to put yourself on speaker and take yourself off mute. I understand, and we have the objections that have been received in respect of this development application. Some 22 objections were received, and we have noted that, and the panel has had the opportunity of reading those as well. So I could invite Myron to address the panel. Thank you, Myron.
Hi. Look, thanks for letting me address you. I don't feel I've been adequately notified of everything that's going on. I didn't know they were proposing yet another unit, which is obviously disappointing for me, given that the first application that was approved was for 27 units. And previous to that, the application was rejected on the basis that it was overdevelopment of the site. And then subsequently to the 27 units being developed, a further 3 were approved, and it's gone up to 30, and now it looks like they're putting another one on. Look, the reason I asked to speak today, because I got quite angry at
Now,
council.
so, yes, can I just clarify it for you, Myron? I believe that there's 28 units approved and this modification is for.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. The reason I saw that.
Is that correct, David?
27 units.
27,
approved.
27 approved, sorry.
Okay.
27.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that for me, because when I was trying to read through the jumble of and multitude of jumbled documents on council's website, it looked to me like the most recent one that was approved was a 30 for 30 units. So again, this and part of what I want to address today is just how difficult this process is for residents to navigate, and how grossly biased I feel it is towards developers. But it's actually not my key item today, and I was actually hoping there'd be someone from the developer, because I was hoping to address them directly as well. But I'll run through my bullets very quickly and try and keep to your 5 minutes. The purpose of my address is just to outline for you the impact that this development's had on me and my family, and kind of the situation that's left us in. Some of the subject matter for me is a bit confronting and difficult to speak about, so you'll forgive me if I get a little bit emotional. So my boys were born in August of 2020. My wife had a life-threatening condition, and the doctors decided to deliver early. One of my boys had what I'll describe as a severe medical emergency, the outcome of which we were told was potentially death, that he may not be able to walk, he may not be able to feed, he may not get full sight, he may not be able to take care of himself as an adult. He underwent a number of brain surgeries. He was moved between hospitals, released in November 2020, which is at or about the time we found out that the 7 houses opposite us were slated for this major development. I sought to engage the developer for assistance to rent somewhere else, because my baby was given a whole raft of therapy. We've got occupational therapists, physiotherapists, basically whatever the NDIS provider recommended, we did. And we needed him to be in a stable environment for that. Now, my unit is street facing. The boys' bedroom's on the street, and directly opposite the street is the site of the 7 blocks of land this block of units going up on. I knew quite early on that I could not let my boys' development be at the risk of all of the noise from the demolition, the excavation of 3 layers or 3 stories of land, and then the construction. So I contacted the developer. The developer ignored me, and I sought council's assistance. Council basically failed to provide any assistance whatsoever. I'll go through it again. I'll go as briefly as I can. The reason I approached the developer, again, because my boy was, well, he was a baby, he needed the therapy. And in particular, the key thing for me is that the therapy is designed to get his neural pathways working again, reaching, grabbing, doing whatever. After he does his therapy, he naps. I didn't want his naps disturbed by the construction noise. And the reason for that is that that's when the brain actually reinforces and forms the neural pathways. Yeah. So sorry, I'm going down my rabbit holes. I did a back of the coaster estimate of the profit this developer is going to make off this site. I would suggest it is an absolute minimum of $20 million. Like, you're talking really big money. And for what it's worth, probably not much. Most of the people I saw going to the sales office didn't appear to be Australian nationals. They appeared to be foreign nationals or representatives of foreign nationals. So, and also one of the key investors in the property developer, Aberdeen Group, is also a Chinese company called Phoenix. That's just for your background. I'm not sure it adds much. I'm not sure that it does. I guess the only reason I raise that is that what we've been through as 7-8 year residents of that street, all the impact this is going to have on my family and my baby and his development, this all seems to be for the interests of foreign investors and a foreign-backed development company. Okay, let me briefly cover my interactions with the developer. I asked them to cover rent for the duration of the construction so that I could get my baby somewhere quiet and not suffer the financial impact of having to sell my unit while there was a bloody great construction site over the road. The developer ignored me. I attended the planning panel back in, I think it was early 2021. I outlined this to the panel. The panel rejected the original application for overdevelopment, but asked the developer to take my address into account. The developer again ignored me. The developer didn't give us any information whatsoever on when they were going to start digging, when they were going to start excavating. Nothing. We got absolutely nothing. I later read in the DA that it was a requirement that they engaged residents. Again, absolutely nothing. Excuse me for 1 minute. 1 second, sorry. So again, sorry.
No, you keep going, Myron. I understand the difficult circumstances.
Okay,
You've
I'll be as brief.
already gone over your 5 minutes, but if you could now focus on, and I've allowed that, but if you could now focus on what your concerns are with the modification application.
My request is that you just don't allow anything more for this developer. Again, to do proper research was very difficult, given as I was only notified of this last Thursday and given 2 days, including a public holiday when I haven't had the advantage of daycare. And also, of course, I have a full-time job in amongst all of this. Look, I've obviously got a lot of concerns that I'm not even going to get through here. And I'm certainly haven't got through all my interactions with the developers, but other than to say that their behaviour has been absolutely disgusting, including that they were monitoring us all the time in the background. When I asked them for assistance to move again, because there was one day when they had a delegate of investors out the front who I confronted, which did bring their works to a halt very temporarily. Then when I asked them, they said that they were still not going to assist, and they asked me to sign a non-disclosure agreement taking on liability if conditions that I had no control over were achieved. And then for some reason, which I found humiliating, one of the members of one of the staff of the developer started emailing me links to other apartments that were for rent nearby, which was an impossibility for me because I had my mortgage on Rodborough. I had a mortgage on the place that we've moved to, and I had I just had absolutely nowhere to go or move. And I had to sit there and go through probably a month and a half of that construction until my new place was in a sufficiently safe, and it wasn't really safe, but safe enough to get my baby out. Anyway, what I haven't had the chance to address, and I won't, is what I consider to be a disgraceful handling by council, but I guess primarily that there is just no process or procedure or rules or guidelines or anything to take care of residents with sick children who are impacted by developers or properties like this, proposals like this, but then also unconscionable developers who behave in the way that Aberdeen has behaved. I was told by a councillor that I would be assisted.
Oh no, have we lost you? Myron, are you still there?
Back for 6 months and nothing. I said, hello?
Hello? Yeah. Yes, you just cut out momentarily. You had a councillor.
Look, so I contacted all the councillors. One said he would help me. He didn't help me and did nothing, in fact. And because I had been given the impression that I was going to be assisted, I sat back and didn't lodge any more objections. I didn't take any more action. After 6 months, when I called him to ask what was going on, he told me that he was only going to see what he could do and that there was nothing he could do, so he didn't do anything. Look, the state of that bloody website, the fact that there is no mechanism for concerned residents to get together. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. What I meant to say is that this process is so grossly unfair to residents. The examples of which I was just hoping to give was that the documents are almost impossible to access online. Of course, you can open them up, but you don't know where to look. There's 20 documents with all kinds of stuff in it. There is no advocate or anyone in council who is willing to help. There is no mechanism for concerned residents to contact each other. I understand there is precinct, but in most cases, the developers put the 3 weeks of notification either over school holidays or into 3-week periods that sit in between the precinct meetings. So you can't go to precinct anyway. If you do go to precinct, to be honest, not that many people feel it's worth attending because no one believes that anything that they do or say is going to have any impact. Meanwhile, on the other side, the developers are cashed up paying a litany of experts to manage the process in their favour. It's just horrible. Anyway, again, I'm probably at 10 minutes now, so I'll be quiet. If these bastards are asking for another unit, please, I would ask that you do not, especially because it's probably overlooking my property. It's probably another breach of what I thought was shadow violations until I found out from North Council that actually shadow, it's okay if a property is in shadow if it's after 9 o'clock in the morning, or sorry, it might be before 9 o'clock. I forget which one it is. I think it's before because, of course, that's when people are home and probably want the sunshine coming in their flat. Sorry. Anyway, I'll just ask that you don't approve it. If a developer acts as unconscionably as Aberdeen in treating my family like it has and putting us, the impact on my child's life will be real for all the time that I've spent having to find a property, move out. I can't explain to you what it was like at the time, but anyway, I won't ramble.
I hear the anxiety that you've been through, and at the end of the day, I just want you to also be aware that we have read all of your submissions, each of the panel members. We've heard what you have to say. We have to make a decision on the merits. As you can see, the recommendation is for refusal. I don't know whether you've had the opportunity, Myron, of reading the council officer's report, but the recommendation is for refusal. But we'll allow the applicant to address the panel. With respect to developers and development, it's a matter between, a private matter between residents that may be impacted as to what a developer may wish to provide for those residents.
Yeah.
But
my view is that there needs to be somebody somewhere that is advocating on behalf of residents, particularly where there are sick babies. I appreciate that's not probably the area of concern for this panel, but it is something that I am definitely going to pursue because this has been shocking. Like I think I said in one of my submissions that there would be third world dictatorships where families with sick kids get better treatment than we've got over this. We've just been bulldozed aside for this company to make enormous profits. Anyway, I will rest with that. Hey, and look, I do appreciate your time. I'm sure you guys are in a difficult position as well. Thank you.
No, thank you, Myron. You might like to stay online because we're going to hear from Brett Brown now, who's the town planner on behalf of the applicant. So, Brett, I no doubt you have heard the concerns of Myron, and I'd allow you 5 minutes to address the panel on this matter.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair and panel members. Thanks for your time today. I do sympathise with the objector's issues, but unfortunately, I can't comment on the behaviour of the applicant. I've had nothing to do with the interactions with the neighbours. So I understand that Myron has the contact details of the developer and can reach out to them and voice his concerns at any time.
You may be able to, given you're representing the applicant, no doubt you will advise him of the concerns that have been expressed here today.
Absolutely. He's actually online. One of the applicants is online and listening, so he's aware of Myron's concerns, and he has indicated to me that Myron does have contact details that allows him to interact with the company. In terms of his satisfaction with those interactions, I can't really comment, unfortunately. In relation to a couple of the issues that...
Okay, continue on, yes.
In relation to a couple of the issues in terms of the merits of this application raised by Myron, obviously the construction is obviously a significant concern to him. As you're aware, this is a modification only, so the construction of the building has already been approved, and council has conditions of consent that deal with the management of that construction. And if the applicant isn't constructing the building in accordance with those conditions, then obviously action can be taken in relation to those matters. And I urge Myron to access the conditions of approval, and if there are any issues there, to contact the developer in the first instance to try and resolve any concerns that he has. The only other issue really raised in relation to this application was overshadowing.
Can I just ask a question, Brett, in terms of the construction site, and I did see it this morning, is the PCA's telephone number and contact details highly visible on the site?
I personally can't show the answer to that. Maybe the applicant could respond to that if you're willing to hear from them, or you want to wait till the end to hear from them.
Yep. Okay. Rightio.
So yes, we'll deal with that at the end if you like. So just in relation to the issue of overshadowing, the proposed amendments to the top level have been specifically designed to be within the footprint of the existing building in terms of its impacts on neighbours. There's some debate in the council report about that impact, but we believe that our drawings are correct and that the proposal doesn't create any additional overshadowing beyond what the approved development does. And I'll say some more comments about that later on in my comments. So if I could just move on generally to the council report. Just a point of correction in terms of the number of objections. The staff report does refer to 22. I think that's slightly misleading because there's actually 2 rounds of objections based on the changes to the plans during the process. So it was 11 submissions the first time and 11 submissions the second time, making a total of 22 submissions. So
yes, we understand that. Yes.
Okay, good. So this modification was lodged on the 17th of March, 2022, almost 7 months ago. And the applicant has tried to work with the council in terms of trying to provide a reasonable level of accommodation at that level. I'm just hoping I can share my screen with you, panel, so you can look at some images that might assist in you understanding my comments. Is that possible?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, thank you. There we go. Can we see that?
Yes, we can.
Great. So you can see that the extent of the approved top story, which is shown here in orange, is very limited. And in my view, when I first looked at this proposal, not having been involved with the original DA, was that really the outcome of the original assessment and decision was that the development, particularly from the public domain, appears as a 3-story building, and that top level is almost invisible in that view from the street. So what we tried to do was provide some additional accommodation at that level, which is more commensurate with the council's controls, which encourages 4-story development. So we have a development of 3 stories with a top level that's set back, which is typical of development within the R4 zone. You'll be very familiar with what is typically achievable under those controls. Unfortunately, council had some issues with the extent to which we were proposing to extend that top story, and we worked closely with them to reduce it to the point where we thought it was at a point where it didn't have any impacts, where it was only minimally visible from the public domain and would be acceptable. One of the main concerns that council had was that it lost the appearance of stepping down with the topography of the land, that was evident in the original approval. So what we've tried to do now is the outline here in green is what's being proposed at that top level. So you can see it's only marginally greater than what's already been approved in orange, and certainly significantly smaller than the overall footprint of the building, which is quite substantial there shown in blue. So the new top level accounts for only 29% of the total footprint of the level below it. We believe this to be consistent with council's controls, and in particular the setback requirements of the ADG, which are significantly exceeded by that top level. I'd also like to provide some comments just generally on some of the comments in the council staff report. There's a comment that the proposal isn't substantially the same development. So panel, I know you're very experienced in these matters, and I think it's very evident from the changes that we're proposing that the council's conclusion is incorrect in relation to this matter. The assessment doesn't contain any qualitative or quantitative assessment of the proposed changes. And in my view, we're only adding one additional apartment in a location where there's already a level approved, and it's just an extension of that existing level. I don't believe you can come to the conclusion that this is not substantially the same development. In relation to the reduction of the communal open space, the top story communal space is reduced by the proposal, but overall there's still a significant amount of private communal open space provided. There's an area of 350 square metres at ground level, which is available to the residents. And there's also an 84 square metre indoor communal room. So this results in a total provision of 545 square metres of communal open space, which is only 5% less than the 25% requirement of the ADG. Given the oversized courtyard spaces at ground level and also the very large balconies at the top level, and also the proximity to considerable open space at North Sydney Oval, we don't think this slight deficiency in relation to the ADG requirements would warrant refusal of the application. In relation to overshadowing, as I said, the plans have been specifically designed not to overshadow adjoining properties. We understand that the council has some concerns about this and maybe some difference in opinion about this, but we're more than happy to accept a condition of consent that ensures that there will be no overshadowing of adjoining properties, and happy for council to be the determining authority in relation to that issue, because it's certainly not the intention of this application to do that. In relation to the non-compliance with the height control, the height of the top level extension is a maximum of 1.8 metres above the height limit. If we could just show this slide here. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
So you can see that area highlighted in yellow there represents the greatest extent of the non-compliance apart from the lift overrun, which is 2.2 metres, which is the existing approved non-compliance. So the level of non-compliance is actually less than the maximum non-compliance that's already approved. And also the location of that non-compliance is set back significantly from the property boundaries and also the level below, meaning that it has no impact. It's 22 metres from the eastern boundary and also 23 metres from the southern boundary. So therefore, the non-compliance with the height control doesn't really exacerbate what's already been approved and is in a location where it doesn't have any additional impacts. It also doesn't have any privacy impacts or view loss impacts. It's also substantially hidden in views from surrounding properties as indicated in the submitted photo montages. So these three images from left to right represent the approved scheme, the original plans that were submitted with this modification request, and on the left, on the right is the current scheme. So you can see in those images that the proposal will be not significantly visible from adjoining properties. And so, yeah, the visual impacts are minimised, the overshadowing impacts are minimised, and we won't really see that, that level from those surrounding properties. Also from the public domain, it is more prominent, but as you can see here, with the approved scheme, the extent of the top level was very, very minimal. And basically, it's so hard to see that you can't really perceive the stepping in the building that council seems to be so concerned about. You can see in the middle there, the extent of the originally proposed modification was quite substantial, and we agreed with council to reduce that to allow some stepping in the building to be visible. So you can see in the proposed top level on the right-hand side, the building is set back from the southern boundary to allow that stepping to be read in that view.
Right, okay, Brett, I'll just see whether, sorry.
Sorry, I'm almost finished, almost there.
Yeah.
In relation to the excessive plant area noted in the assessment report, the applicant has provided amended plans to council to show the deletion of this area. And so these plans can be used if you're of a mind to approve the application. Considering the lack of impact of the proposal and that it creates a 3-story building with a reduced 4th-story setback, as intended by the controls, we ask you to support the non-compliance with the height control and that you grant approval of this modification. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. I'll just see whether the panel members have some questions for you.
Sure.
Brendan?
Thanks for that, Brett. Look, would you interpret 12 metres as equating to a higher building than 3 stories?
Well, typically on a sloping site, invariably that height control is breached. I'm very experienced with DAs in North Sydney Council, and there's certainly no circumstances that I'm aware of, even on flat sites where that height control is not breached. Obviously, the control comes pre-ADG effectively. So what that means is that even a building that complies with the ADG height controls, by the time you add plant to a 3-story building with 3.1 metre ceiling heights, it can't comply with that control. So in effect, every development fails to comply with that control. It's just the degree to which it doesn't comply. And particularly on sloping sites, obviously being an architect, you're aware of the difficulties of trying to comply with buildings that have a consistent floor plate as this one does.
Okay. I would have assumed it doesn't allow for a 4-story building. In terms of communal open space, can you understand why, with higher density development, communal open space is a chief requirement of
Yes.
multi-dwelling, and that there's a requirement that 50% of your primary communal open space will receive solar access in winter?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems as though you're really far short of that, and the provision of a room that's underground wouldn't seem to compensate for that. Like, that room would either be parking, or like the communal room you're referring to is underground. So can you understand how somebody looking at the current proposal would think it's basically saying an additional apartment or the provision of buying communal open space?
Well, just in relation to the comment on the communal room, obviously it serves a specific purpose and allows the community within the building to meet in a space that's comfortable and obviously free from the elements, which might not normally be the case. So we do believe that that should be considered as a benefit in terms of communal space. It's obviously not a requirement to provide that space, but it's considered to be a benefit. In terms of the outdoor space, I guess the overall intent is to provide a balance in terms of the types of spaces provided. So there is a retained area at the top level, which provides obviously a very high level of solar access, and I guess pleasant district views, and barbecue facilities, etc., for the use of the residents. Some of the objections, I think, in the original application was to the size of that communal space, and of course, councils are often sensitive to the size of those spaces and the ability to be able for them to be able to be used for large gatherings. So with a smaller space, that's not possible. There's less likely to be impact on the neighbours from that smaller space, and there is space at ground level, albeit I accept that it's on the southern side of the building. It's also to the west, where it will have some good solar access and provides a range of spaces for residents to recreate. In my experience in North Sydney Council, they do provide a reasonable level of flexibility when it comes to communal spaces. And, the 25% requirement of the ADG is a very significant requirement that is not always able to be met. And in locations like this, which is highly accessible to larger open space areas, I believe that the amount of communal space that we're providing is acceptable.
Thank you.
Lindsay, do you have any questions?
No, Brendan's raised the issues that I have concerns with too. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, like what?
Similarly, yes, the open space fine. Okay, righty. Well, thank you very much, Brett, and
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Myron. And I don't know whether your applicant's online to advise about the PCA's contact numbers and whatnot.
Yeah, Michael, are you able to
Yes, all the PCA's contact numbers are available on the site hoarding.
Right, very well, great, thank you. Right, yeah, well, we will determine this matter in our closed session and our decision will be on the council's website generally by the end of the week. So thank you all for participating in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.